Fee Review Board to order. I'd like to recognize that we have a quorum with John Demery and Jim Longest present. Is there any attendees that wish to be noted other than the petitioner?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
And the board would recognize that the only correspondence that we've received is the petition, which will be covered under new business.
That's correct.
We have no old business, which takes us then to item 6 on the agenda, which is new business, the appeal, Movement Chiropractic and Sports Clinic at 12036 North Michigan Road.
I'll just give a quick summary and then I'll hand it off to Drew Hunt from who is the applicant. This property is located out at 12036 North Michigan Road, medical office building. This tenant space had been vacant for a number of years and they are the first tenants to be occupying that space. They were originally assessed a fee of $19,484.50 and they are appealing that fee for a lower amount. And I'll hand it off to Drew to express how they'd like to revise that.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the board for meeting today. As Zach just mentioned, the appeals in regards to the assessed amount of $19,484.50. We made a formal request for a reduction of two amounts, and it was really based on the formulas that we were informed. The first one being based on the formula of the number of trips multiplied by the number of days multiplied by the number or the fee amount of $278.35. So that formula was based off of how many trips in a work week that I anticipated. Now, starting as a new practitioner, the number is essentially going to be pretty low to begin, honestly, and that's the anticipation with any new business, especially going into a new territory where I have non-compete. I anticipate it being a lot lower. The second amount that I'm requesting, or the alternative, is based off what Mr. Lutz told us back on September 9th, that the amount was actually based off a generic formula under the designation of medical office. And I would like to kind of address that one first. So in regards to medical office, I believe that's a very large umbrella. And as we all know, there's a lot of different types of medical practices. Just to compare, in my building alone, the Indiana Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons, who also own the building, back in 2020, they paid $17,384. Their space is the entire second floor, whereas I have a smaller space on the first floor. They have more employees, they see more patients, and I get that that number was calculated before the change that was made earlier this year. Godly Orthodontics, also in the building, larger in terms of number of employees, patient visits, all those things I mentioned, and square footage. They paid $12,855 in 2022. The fee that was assessed for them was $106. Mine was $278.35, which is calculated out to a 162.594% increase. And I just wanted to make note of that. The one thing that I also kind of wanted to bring back to in regards to the designation of medical office, just to kind of put it in perspective, a medical doctor, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2023, medical doctors on average make $239,000. Surgeons, $344,000. Orthodontists, $239,000. Chiropractors, $76,500. Again, it's to try and delineate that although I am, yes, a medical office. The expectation that we were all the same, that we see the same number of patients, and that we bring in the same amount of revenue is incorrect. The one other thing that I wanted to note, and this is a little less on the number side, but just understanding that I chose Zionsville for its opportunities. I'm from Indianapolis. I was raised in Carmel. I currently live in the Broadville area, but I chose Zionsville because, again, I saw a lot of great opportunity, a lot of growth, and it's my belief that really this impact fee, which was just under $20,000, was frankly a gut punch. I wasn't anticipating it. It represents a large chunk of what I am already putting into the business and putting into what I hope to be the community. Just to kind of lay that out, my SBA loan is just over $200,000. On top of that, I've pulled out a line of credit of $50,000. This impact fee forced me to actually go into my wife and I's savings, which is kind of what we planned on living off of for the first, couple of weeks, months while the business gets up and running. And truly, this fee just really served as is a very large obstacle for me that I was not anticipating. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Mr. Fairbach, would you care to address the generic medical office
Sure.
issue?
Is this on? Yeah. Let's back up a little bit. So the way we do the overall impact fee study for you guys is one of the very first things is we generate trips for all your vacant land in the area. And doing that, we use what is called the ITE Trip Generation Manual, Institute of Transportation Manuals. It is a nationwide manual that traffic engineers like myself use. In that manual, there's several different uses, over 1,000 uses, and there is a medical dental type use. And so that data is all put into that as we collect data at other locations. We send it to Washington and it all goes into one. So it is one large database for medical, dental, things like that. So it would include the chiropractors, it would include the orthodontists, it would include doctors and things like that. When we did the calculation, one of the things that we take a look at is one of the best ways to do the calculation is because I noticed in his letter he talks about number of patients and things like that. We tend to use square footage because it is finite. We know that. It's not subjective. We know, and that's why the Trip Generation Manual has a lot of the data based on the square footage of the use. Not to say that some don't have number of patients, seats in a restaurant and things like that. But most of the time, the best data to use is the square footage. So when we as engineers look at this, and I believe your ordinance even says you must use the Trip Generation Manual when data is available to do this calculation, we use the square footage and the medical office, which is the generic size, and that's what came up with the fees. So his data based on number of patients could be very valid, things like that, but in this case, we felt the square footage was the best way to be used.
Mr. Demery, do you have any questions or observations?
Well, I guess I would ask for clarification. What are we bound by the use of square footage and medical as the determinants for the fee? Is that hard and fast? What gray area is there, if any?
So what we do is there are some uses like a single family home is single family home. It doesn't matter how big it is. So we are not bound by using square footage or seats or whatever it is. I'm just giving you what we used as, in this case, what we felt at A&F Engineering was the best one to use, because it was the best data
Sure.
that we had. But you are not bound. We could have easily have thought, oh, goodness gracious, today is the day that we picked the wrong thing, square footage, we better go back and look at square footage or seats or whatever it is. So you're not bound, and A&F is not bound.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would tell you, to me, this is very reminiscent of one of the last cases that we addressed. And that is it was a hair salon, right, where basically they were building out, she was wanting to put in 2 chairs, right, but only wanted to pay the impact fee for one of the chairs. And as I look at this layout, I see 3 treatment rooms. And I think that in the letter that was written to us, they talked about essentially going from 8 patients per day, 5 days a week, to 4 patients per day. And I think that the stance that we took on the petition for the hair salon was that if she decided to hire another stylist and start utilizing that second chair, that basically there would be no additional permits required and nothing to basically trigger an additional impact fee that the additional traffic would cause.
Sure.
And to me, this is, I think, very much the same thing. I think in the letter you said that basically you're looking at 4 patients per day as a realistic number.
Correct.
But, and I've been to a chiropractor before, and typically the initial visit takes a long time to go through and do an assessment and a kind of a treatment plan. But then once you get to treating them, I mean, you're in and out in like 30 minutes. And in this case, and obviously, I think that you want the business to be successful, so you want additional people to come in, and I'm sure that you want to be busy all day long. And with 3 exam rooms, I would probably make the argument that we probably underassessed the impact in the first place.
That very well could be, yeah. Very well could
But I
be.
think that what we have to do is look at it, see what is the potential for vehicle trip generation for this site. And I personally, I look at it and I think that we have to affirm the staff's initial calculation that it was correct.
So unfortunately, I would have to agree with you. And I say unfortunately because even though I sit on this committee to review these and we make these decisions, as a side note, from an economic development standpoint, I'm not a big fan of the road impact fee. But to your case in your case in point here, I agree with you. We've got three exam rooms. And certainly there's the intention to do more business than 4 patients a day if you've got 3 exam rooms. So, and probably the use of square footage may have been, in this case, overly fair, as you point out. So, the fee obviously has gone up substantially from past years from a rate standpoint, and that is having an impact on how this fee relates to some of the others that you referenced. But Jim, I would have to agree with you on this. So.
Do you have any additional comments that you would like to make?
To, I guess, clarify a little bit in the way that I practice, a typical patient is being seen by me for about 45 minutes, and that's just one-on-one. The plan with my clinic is actually to have more passive services where the patient's actually spending closer to an hour and a half in the office. There's other therapies that I utilize, which is why the idea would be to have multiple treatment rooms just for their privacy. I also did the treatment room build out because I had the space. Again, going back is for at least right now, you know, the immediate future, I'm still just one employee. I can't be in 3 rooms at one time, you know, while also handling the business side, answering phones, doing everything that I need to do. And that's, so I understand when you see it and it's like, well, there's potential here for, you know, 3 doctors and a lot more patient income. That's just not how I practice or intend on practicing. Just want to clarify that.
Anything additional from the staff?
I just wanted to see if Steve had any other discussion on, because we did give them the, if you were to calculate it via employees. I know that is an option, but it's typically not used. Is that something that you would see as relevant for this particular option or not?
No, I would use the square footage in this case because of the data sample that we have in the ITE trip generation manual.
Okay.
Then if there's no other discussion on this matter, then the chair would entertain a motion. Motion to uphold the staff calculation.
Yes, I would move to uphold the staff calculation.
I'd second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 2-0, and the petition is rejected.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's.
It doesn't support small business
No, but
on the startup side.
I would like to point out that there are other programs and avenues available, and you can contact the town staff if you're going to have trouble paying the fee initially up front. There are microloans and.
We tried to do that. It had to be paid. The only other system that was put in place would have required a lien against the building, which the landlords were absolutely against and would not accept. So the fee has already been paid. It was just the hope that we could try and recuperate some of that in order to basically put it back into the business, but not all at once.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we're allowed to, but,
If you're gonna speak, would you mind coming up to the mic?
sure. So I just,
If you could state your name and.
oh, sorry,
affiliation.
I am Shannon Hunt, and I represented Drew as his retail broker to put together this deal with the landlord. You know, I guess I work with retailers all over the state, including Starbucks. I'm very familiar with impact fees. Starbucks is doing a new location further north on Michigan Road. I would imagine their impact fee is $100,000 plus. That's what we're seeing in some of these northern suburbs. And that's exorbitant, don't get me wrong. However, the traffic that retailers and restaurants bring in comparison to doctors' offices, and specifically chiropractic offices, it seems to me that in a 1,900 square foot space, as opposed to like an 8,000 square foot space, which is on the second floor, and I know that the fees have changed, but 3 years ago, that office paid, what, 17,000 something? And here we've got someone that's taking a quarter of that space 3 years later in a building that no one else has been able to lease. That you've got a small business owner, single doctor, chiropractic use. They're an oral surgeon, and he's paying $2,000 more for a 1,900 square foot space. That seems insane to me, having seen these impact fees all over the state, and some cities don't even have impact fees for new construction. So I guess, like, you know, understand that the verdict is what it is. But from a city perspective, if I were you all, I'd be very concerned about what that says to new, because I mean, truthfully, like, had you known about the $20,000 impact fee on top of the $200,000 he's already putting into someone else's space, maybe he would have picked a different site and/or a different city to start his business. So that would be my only additional comments, is it just seems, to your point, John, a little bit a lot of it anti-small business. And I think that these impact fees are arbitrary. They're calculated based on a national manual, you know, and maybe a chiropractor in Washington, D.C. is seeing 25 to 40 patients a day, but Indiana's different. So those would be my additional arguments. I just think it's something that the city should be aware of. To me, it seems like a problem. If I were in your shoes, I would think it was a problem. So those are my additional comments.
The items that you addressed are actually outside the purview of this particular board, but I'm sure that the town staff will pass that along to the appropriate individuals. I don't have anything else on the agenda for today. Any additional comments, questions, or items to be brought up? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.